Now let's quickly look at when to choose which index. So here we have our gameplay table, some of the examples of LSIs and GSIs. Okay, so first let's look at the local secondary indexes. You use local secondary indexes when your application requires the same partition key as the table. And since local secondary indexes use the same provision capacity as the table, when you need to avoid additional costs, you would choose LSIs. And when your application needs strongly consistent reads, then again you will use the local secondary indexes. Then what's the use case for global secondary indexes? Now, when your application requires a different partition key than the table, then you use the global secondary indexes. Again, you can also use them when your partition key is same as that of the table. When your application requires finer throughput control, you can use global secondary indexes. Remember, global secondary indexes have their own throughput. And when your application only requires eventually consistent reads, that's when global indexes or global secondary indexes should be used, because global secondary indexes do not support strongly consistent reads. All right. Then the DynamoDB indexes and throttling. So let's look at the throttling considerations of the two indexes. First, the local secondary indexes. Now, these use the same capacity units as that of the main table, so we don't have any special throttling considerations with local secondary indexes. But in case of global secondary indexes, you have to remember this, and this is super important. If the writes on the GSI get throttled, then the main table will be throttled as well, even if the WCUs on the main table are fine. That means even if your main table is underutilizing its WCUs, and if your GSI is overutilizing the WCUs, then your main table is also going to be throttled. So it's very important that you provision the capacities on the global secondary indexes thoughtfully. You have to choose them carefully. So it's super important that you provision your global secondary index capacity units thoughtfully. And of course, you should make sure that the partition keys are chosen carefully. So you should choose your partition keys based on the access patterns of your application, and WCA should be provisioned accordingly so that they don't result in throttling, because the main table can also get throttled if your GSIs are throttled. All right.